Okay, I'm going to explain the ethical issues in healthcare brief. I'm only going to go through part one. There'll be another video we'll do later when we get to part two. Okay, you should all have seen one of these before. Basically gives the title of the unit, the title of the assignment. Okay. Those are the criteria, the grading information, understanding, application and knowledge, communication and presentation and quality. So basically the same as your last unit. Right, the main thing I want to do here is just to talk to you about the assignment brief. Now in part one, basically you're dealing with a case study. It's about a family, they're called the Mallows. I'm not going to read through it all. I'm sure you can read yourselves, but basically it's a number of ethical dilemmas that a community psychiatric nurse has to deal with when she's trying to help this family. And after the case study, you're asked to answer these three questions here. Okay, now you only have to write approximately 150 words for each question's answer, so this part one, isn't a great deal in terms of word count. Part two is an essay, that's more. However, if you look at question one, you see a mention of the word autonomy, and then question two, seeing these two words mentioned, and this notion here of justice. Now, before you read that case study above about the Mallows, the best thing to do would be to go to the unit handbook, and on page 13 there is a short description of those four phrases that are used in the questions, and it basically describes what they are and what they mean. Once you know what they are, you can go back to the case study and you can talk about two examples of where the notion of autonomy is a problem for the CPN, i.e. where there's one person's right to be in charge of their own destiny begin to affect another's. What you would do in that case, start your answer saying what you believe autonomy is in your own words, and then within the case study find an example of where, because a person is choosing the way they want to live, that's all well and good, that's autonomy, but it can be a problem because by choosing the way they want to live it can harm others. And within that case study, I want you to find an example of that. Question 2 is this idea of beneficence versus non-maleficence. Now, at first, a lot of people think that it's basically the same thing. Now, beneficence is the production of good, whereas non-maleficence is doing no harm. So, the best way to describe this is, if I give somebody £5, I'm, doing something good for them. If I don't push somebody into a road, that's not being particularly good for them, but I'm doing them no harm. And that doing them no harm is non-maleficence. Trying to produce good is beneficence. So don't think they're the same thing, there are slight differences. So going back to that second question, okay, basically, like before, define what these terms are, and then find, by reading through the case study, an example of how the community psychiatric nurse could reduce the potential for harm while not, or as best he or she can, reducing the benefits for others. The final question is talking about the Mental Health Act. So you may have to do some independent research in what the Mental Health Act is, and as by sectioning somebody, once again, if you don't know what section is, independent research, by sectioning somebody, how will justice be met? So what you're weighing up there is, if you are going to take away someone's liberty, which I think essentially being sectioned under the Mental Health Act is that justified? Because Bernie, as you shall see when you read it, has committed no crime. So is it justice that he's effectively locked up and detained? And you've got to explore that. Now, just a tip, these three questions, there's essentially no right answer to any of them. So that sounds bizarre, but this is not science, this is moral philosophy. You have to show that you understand what each of the phrases are in each question, and then just give some ideas. Now, a lot of people ask me, is this a good answer, is that a good answer? The best answer is one that shows you understand that the answers basically are not absolute. There is room for debate on them, and it's showing that there's a debate, okay, that will get you the best marks here. So I'm going to stop there. The next part of the brief is part 2. So remember, 150 words for each of those questions answer. And if you've got any questions, please ask me, but this part is you're basically being assessed on your ability to interpret those questions yourself. Okay, so I hope that's helped and not confused too many of you. I will of course explain it again and in a different way if you wish. Do not hesitate to ask. Okay, thanks.